All right. So Plano ISD offers the SAT suite of assessments starting in 9th grade and finishing in 11th grade with the SAT. The SAT suite of assessments is an integrated system of tests that measures what students are learning in class and what they need to succeed in college and beyond. By assessing students' strengths and areas of improvement, the SAT suite of assessments create a framework for providing effective and targeted support based on the assessments. You can see right here, we do have a link that you guys can click on whenever you open up your presentation that goes straight out to a PISD a website with a lot of different resources for SAT and PSAT as well. Our purpose tonight together is to define some key terms for you. We'll go over some very important vocabulary that you guys will need to know to have some more information about the PSAT. We're going to review content and features of the test, as well as empower you, the parents and guardians, with tools and resources to support your students' assessment preparation. So vocabulary, some important key terms whenever we're talking about PSAT and college and career ready. So those are some key words that we are very use often in today's educational world. So that is possessing the skills deemed necessary to succeed in post-high school, college, or career. The College Board. So this is the organization that prepares and administers standardized tests, and that's the PSAT, the SAT, AP test. So the College Board is the one responsible for all of these tests that we're talking about tonight, as well as a lot of other standardized tests as well. And that's actually where your student will find their scores, is the College Board website. So we're going to provide a little bit more information on College Board a little bit later. SAT is the Scholastic Assessment Test, and that measures academic skills. PSAT 9 is the pre-SAT, and that's taken during grade 9 during the fall semester. Students only take this test one time. The PSAT NMSQT, that is also a pre-SAT, and that's taken in grade 10 and in grade 11. And this is used for national merit recognition in grade 11. We take this test during the fall as well. And then Khan Academy, and this is a personalized official online SAT prep. It's a completely free resource, and we have lots more information that we're going to provide on Khan Academy in a later slide. So the SAT suite of assessments, all of the PSAT assessments provide parents, students, educators with valuable data that can be analyzed for the purpose of knowing where the students' gaps are in being college ready. Once the gaps are identified, a plan to close those gaps can be made. Gaps are typically closed within the classroom. Additionally, students can use programs like Khan Academy to provide an individual plan to close those gaps. So we have the SAT, that college entrance exams that's used throughout the United States and across the world. And Plano provides this to 11th graders completely free during the spring semester of their 11th grade. So, sorry, I accidentally got muted there. So Plano ISD provides this to all 11th graders in the spring semester completely free. So we enroll all 11th graders in the SAT their spring semester. The PSAT NMSQT measures students' readiness for that SAT by benchmarking scores in the fall of grade 10. 11th graders that opt into it can take this test as well. And this score is used to determine students' qualification for National Merit Scholarship, along with additional scholarships and other recognitions. And then finally, PSAT 9 once measures that student's readiness for the SAT by benchmarking scores at grade 9. Some PSAT and PSAT NMSQT key facts. Like I said, that the NMSQT determines 11th grade students' qualifications for national merit. So the PSAT NMSQT will also determine waivers for students wishing to enroll in dual credit courses. So if you've got a 10th grader or an 11th grader that's wishing to take dual credit courses as an 11th grader or a 12th grader, Collin College will look at the PSAT NMSQT scores for waiver purposes. Students must score at least a 460 on evidence-based reading and writing and a 510 on math to meet those TSI requirements to be waived for dual credit admission. So it's also very important for that as well. A couple other key facts that I want to point out on this slide. You'll notice that the test length for PSAT 9 is 2 hours and 25 minutes. And for the PSAT NMSQT, it's 2 hours and 45 minutes. And then the SAT, whenever a student takes that as a junior, it's a little bit longer as well. The test has a few more questions as students progress from 9th grade to 10th grade to 11th grade. So the test length gets a little bit longer, takes a little bit longer for the student to take. One other point I want to point out here is there's no penalty for a student guessing or having blank responses. So it's very important that a student works through the entire test and answers as many questions as possible. And if they get to that point, that they bubble in every single bubble that they can, because they're not going to be penalized for a wrong answer. They're rewarded for correct answers. So all tests in the SAT suite have the same score and sub-score breakdown. These exams have the ability to engage all core subjects in the conversation. The scale score changes slightly from exam to exam, as you're going to see on the next slide. But when we look at the SAT, you have a total score, and this is the SAT. The SAT score is between 400 and 1600. The 1600 is the top score for a student. That's the total score. That total score is divided up into two sections. That's evidence-based reading and writing, and then math. And each section score has a total of 800 points. So you can score between 200 and 800 in math and 200 and 800 in evidence-based reading and writing. Evidence-based reading and writing can be broken down into two sections. That is reading and writing and language. Math has one section, but it's actually broken into calculator and non-calculator. So it's very important that if your child has a calculator, that they bring that calculator on day of test. You don't have to have a calculator to perform these calculations, but it's going to put them at a disadvantage whenever they're taking the test if they don't have a calculator available to them. So we highly suggest your child bring a calculator. And a little bit later, I'm going to have a link to a list of approved calculators that your student can bring to the test. So very important that your child has a calculator on the day of the test. In addition to these scores, science and social studies, they also analyze science and analyze social studies as well. They use these as cross-test scores. This is not a science or social studies test. It's an analysis of the content across subjects. The benchmark is going to determine college success at the end of a year and not tied to a specific course. So one other thing that I like to point out on the screen is a lot of people ask, well, where does the national merit qualifying scores come from? And a lot of people think that the score comes from the 1600 scale. Well, it doesn't actually come from the 1600 scale. National merit qualifying comes from this reading, this writing and language, and this math scale score. So this 10 to 40, what they do is they will double the reading score for a student, double the writing and language score for a student, and double the math score for a student, and then add those three up. So that's how we get a national merit qualifying score. It doesn't actually come from this 1600 score. It comes from these three scores right here. So moving on to the next slide, this is the scores across the suite of assessments. So all of the SAT suite of assessments are graded on the same scale. So you'll notice that the SAT, the most you can score on a section is 200 to 800. And then on PSAT NMSQT, the most you can score is a 760. So the most you can score on the PSAT NMSQT would be a 1520. The most you could score at PSAT 9 would be a 1440. So it's scaled from 9th grade to 10th grade to 11th grade. So the college readiness scores, these benchmarks down here at the bottom, those expectations also increase as students advance in grade levels. So at 9th grade, our college readiness benchmarks are 410 for evidence-based reading and writing and 450 for math. And then you can see they increase as students go up. And right here at the 11th grade level, this is our college readiness level we want students to meet prior to graduation. This is a very key part. So we want students at 480 for evidence-based reading and writing and 530 for math. These benchmarks reflect that the student has a 75% likelihood that they're going to earn at least a C grade on an AP course or a college level course. So counselors utilize this information for AP potential and putting students into courses whenever they're looking at courses for the next year. So we utilize a lot of the information from the PSAT for the following school year. So how can you prepare your students? How can you make sure that your students are ready to take this important test that's a little less than a month away? So the first option is straight from College Board. College Board releases old tests that are available right now for you to go out and download. They have 10 tests that are available that you can download and print off for your student, and you can give your student a paper and pencil test. Now, I don't suggest you go out and print off 10 tests and make them take 10 tests prior to this exam on October 12th. That would overload them way too much. Give them one practice test prior to October 12th, maybe two. But just the point of this practice test is so that they have a feel for what the PSAT is actually going to look like on October 12th, so that they can understand the timing of it all, and actually have them time out the test like it would be on the day of October 12th. Don't just say, well, do your best and whenever you're done, we'll grade it. Actually time them out and have them time each section and follow the guidelines for PSAT and have them do it like it's a real test. But there's 10 tests available in there, and they can do that and they can get a feel for it. So this is a great opportunity for a student to go through, know what the calculator section is going to look like, the non-calculator section. So this is a great opportunity for them to do that. So like I said, don't overload them with too many practice tests. Just give them maybe one, maybe two practice tests prior to that test. Another opportunity for students to get preparation is Khan Academy. And Khan Academy is a web-based educational site that includes many academic resources for students. And they don't just have SAT and PSAT practice. They have AP practice. They have course-specific practice as well. They have lots of academic resources in Khan Academy that are completely free. But tonight specifically, we're talking about PSAT. Khan Academy has partnered with College Board that makes the PSAT and the SAT test, and they've created an SAT interactive practice program. So the way this works is there's really two different options for your child. If your child has already tested the PSAT 9 or the PSAT NMSQT, they can go to satpractice.org, create an account if they don't already have one, and whenever they're prompted, they can agree to link their Khan Academy account to their College Board account. And once they've done that, it will send their scores and it will create them a personalized practice program based off of what their scores were, and it will give them targeted instruction on areas that they need to improve upon. So it's looking at what they've already done and giving them a pathway so that they will improve. So for option B, if a student's never taken the PSAT before, not a problem. They can still get into Khan Academy, and the students can take these diagnostic exams, and what that will do is it will still give them a pathway that they can work on some targeted instruction to close gaps prior to taking that PSAT. So a couple different options that will help maximize their scores on the PSAT and eventually the SAT, because the SAT is where we're really shooting for students to do the best. So that's really our end goal, is for those students to score the best on, is that SAT, and where the students are going to, we want them to meet college readiness and score as high as possible for scholarships and for college applications and things along those lines. So in Khan Academy, they have full-length SAT prep, full-length or SAT math, SAT reading and writing, SAT tips and strategies. It's not going to necessarily say PSAT, it's going to say SAT, but the SAT and the PSAT is essentially the same test. So you're going to see the SAT piece in here, and that's where what your child's going to study. A key piece right here is that SAT tips and strategies. A lot of students don't understand test taking tips and test taking strategies, And this is a very key part right here, the tips and strategies right there. That's going to tell students how to take the SAT, what to focus on. The test is made up of easy, medium, and hard questions. If a student gets stuck on a hard question and they spend 15 minutes working on a hard question, well, they're not maximizing their time in the test. So they need to understand that if they're on a hard question and they're not getting it, they need to go to the next question that may be an easy question that they can breeze through faster. So that's one of those things where it will talk about tips and strategies, because the test is made up of X amount of easy questions, X amount of medium questions, X amount of hard questions. And that a student needs to recognize those questions whenever they get there. So that's a very important part of this test whenever they're working through it. Additionally, in Khan Academy, parents can also make up an account as well, and you can link it to your child's account, and then you can also watch and make sure that students are working with this as well. And just to point out that studies have shown students who study for 20 hours for at least 20 hours using Khan Academy's free official SAT practice have an average increase of 115 points. And that's double the average score gain of students who do not use their free tool. So that's studies that Khan Academy has done and have seen those gains of students increasing by 115 points. So that's amazing to see them do that. Now that's a student getting in there and putting in that work. So if you will work with your child and have them set aside that time to actually do this. And our goal is not to just have them do this for the next month and then forget it after the PSAT. Once they finish doing the PSAT, they should be revisiting Khan Academy after the PSAT and continuing that progress and continuing to improve in Khan Academy as well. So important piece. Another free option or an option that we provide in Plano ISD that's completely free to students is Edgenuity. And Edgenuity has multiple free pieces in it for ACT, ASVAB, PSAT, SAT, and TSIA2. So these are places that students can self-enroll for these courses, and they can go to the web desk, go to the Edgenuity tile, and they can self-enroll in these courses and work their way self-paced through these courses as well. So just another opportunity for students to work on some test prep. Moving along, we've got the day of the test. So students have studied, they've gone through Khan Academy, they've filled in some gaps. So now what? What can we do on the day of the test? Excuse me. Students should get a good night's sleep. I've got 2 teenagers at home myself. I've got a senior, I got an 8th grader. Neither one of them likes to go to bed before midnight, but on the day of this test, they really should be going to bed trying to get an 8-hour sleep. As much as possible, get them in bed, make sure they're getting a good night's sleep. And the morning of, they should eat a nutritious breakfast. Make sure they're getting that protein, the whole grains. Don't let them eat that sugary food or coffee that's going to really lead to an energy crash during the middle of that test. So have a nutritious breakfast. What should they bring on the day of the test? 2 number 2 pencils, an approved calculator, and there's that list of SAT calculators that you can click on, and it'll take you right to the approved list. And then if there's any College Board approved medical devices, they can bring those as well. I didn't put on what not to bring, so I'll just talk about that real quick. If your student has a cell phone, Apple Watch, earbuds, things like that, they can have those, but they can't have them on them. So the day of the test, students are going to have all of these electronic devices taken up from them. And it's very important that a student doesn't try to be sly and keep those. We want to make sure that all of these devices are at the front of the room and none of their tests get voided on the day of the test. Because if a kid has one of these Apple AirPods in their ear and they have their phone at the front and they're playing music in the Apple AirPod, their test is going to get voided, and we don't want to see that happen. Or if they've got an Apple Watch and they don't turn that into their backpack and put that at the front of the room, then their test is going to get voided. So we want to be very cognizant of what's going on. So other nice to have is a drink or snack for your break, and then extra batteries for your calculator, like just in case. So that's the day of the test. So why are these scores so important? You know, we've talked about what's on the test, how we can study. Now the why. Colleges look at SAT scores as part of the admissions process. Different universities have varying requirements for acceptance, and scores can also be used to determine both university and local scholarships. And I can tell you right now, as a father of a senior, her SAT and her ACT scores are going on all of her applications. They're going on all of her scholarships. They look at all of that as a deciding piece whenever she is applying to these things, as well as those scholarships that she's applying for locally and the ones that she's applying for at her college as well. So she just took the ACT last week because she's trying to increase her scores just a little bit so she can move from a $6,000 scholarship to an $8,000 or a $12,000 scholarship. So these scores are important because there's money tied to them and applications tied to them as well. So very, very important for your kiddos. Additionally, the AP potential report that we get back from PSAT specifically indicates what AP courses a student is showing readiness to take. And students at the high school level benefit from taking AP courses for several reasons. The rigor of an AP course is comparable to the rigor of a college course. If the student earns a high enough score on the AP exam, depending on the college they're going to attend, it could transfer as college credit. The SAT suite of exam also will culminate with that SAT, and it's going to showcase their college readiness. Colleges look at the SAT scores to determine placement of students in English and math when they go to college. If students do not meet those college readiness standards, they may be required to take remedial math and remedial English courses, which could cost them more time and more money whenever they go off to college. And like I said, colleges and universities get thousands of applicants every year. The SAT is one way they use to evaluate students when looking at their application. Students who score well on the PSAT, NMSQT, and SAT can qualify for merit-based scholarships. And there's even recognition programs that come along with these as well. For PSAT and NMSQT, there's the National African American Recognition, National Hispanic Recognition Program, and National Indigenous Recognition Program as well. So to summarize, so what can you do? One, we've gone through and now you can understand what's going to be tested on the PSAT 9 and help to make sure your child is prepared. Use those tools or resources like Khan Academy or Edgenuity, or if you're using some other program, great. Use some program to work with your student to get them prepared for these tests, and even afterwards to prepare for the SAT. Know your school's testing date, October 12th, 2022. 9 a.m. is whenever that test is going to start. This is a school day, so they're not coming up on a Saturday. It's during the week. It's just a regular school day. We are providing this completely free to 9th and 10th graders on October 12th at 9 a.m. So students don't need to register for 9th and 10th grade. The only students that have to register are the 11th graders. All right. So I think that is going to conclude this. Dr. Edney, if you'll go ahead and hit stop on that record, we will